What if all the substance in the universe resides in you? What if all the substance in the universe resides in you? How powerful would you feel? Not from ego, but from being centered in the allness, centered in the universe. If we really believed that we are the manifestation of allness, we would know that we can do all things that Jesus, Muhammad, may peace be upon him, any other enlightened being, we can do that. Actually, I'm going to take it a step further and say that we can do greater things than they have done. But we don't seem to be even able to match what those ascended masters have done. And so the question is, why? Why is that? My one-word answer is faith. Or really, it's the lack thereof. I'm going to define faith for you. As I did last week, I defined certain words, just to ensure that when I talk about faith in this talk, you know how I'm using that term. So a little refresher. Last week, we defined prosperity, which is according to one's hope or expectations. We defined abundance as plenty to overflow. And we defined substance as being, the essence, to be present. And we always have to watch the baby as it leaves the room because it's precious. Don't worry, you're fine. You are fine. Now, when I looked online at dictionary.com, it said faith is defined as this: a system of religious beliefs, or belief in someone or something that one cannot prove, or trust in someone or something, and lastly, the obligation to loyalty. Now, when I look for where did this word originate from, it comes from the Greek word peitho. Peitho, it's spelled P-E-I-T-H-O, which means to persuade. And then if we look at faith in the spiritual context, it means divine persuasion. Divine persuasion. And secularly, in the ancient Near East, the word faith was used to mean guarantee. And then we come to the master, Eric Butterworth. So what does Eric say on this? You know, he's my guru, right? Eric defines faith as consciousness centered in the universal source. Consciousness centered in the universal source. So that is how, when I speak of faith, that's where I'm coming from. Clear? All righty. And my question then is it possible to make a correlation that faith can be seen as a guarantee that we can do all things once we are centered in that flow, the flow of life, light, principle, God? A guarantee. Well, that takes it to another level. And we're going to read just a little bit of Eric that talks about how we've been conditioned to look at faith culturally. He writes this: religious teachings and teachers have conditioned us to think of faith as a magic catalyst that makes God work for us. In no way does faith make God work, nor does it release some kind of miracle power. Faith simply tunes into and turns on the divine flow that has always been present. if I come over here and I use this switch, what happens? Lights go down, right? But the power is still here, is it not? The power that pushes and illuminates those lights are still here. We have to adjust the switch. It's up to us to adjust the switch. Likewise, that is how it works for us. Faith is an act. It is an act that we make a decision to turn it on. Like that simulation, it's always there. That ever-present substance is there for us. There is nothing to go and get, nothing to become. It's right here. And it's simply the realization that we already have it within us and we believe from, not believe in something outside of ourselves. The distinction is to believe from. It's knowing that the riches are right here. But if we don't believe that, if we believe that we are limited and not enough, we manifest a life of limitation and lack. But if we really believe what Reverend Sherrie has been saying week after week after week, that it's within you, then we can manifest not only abundance, but greatness. Greatness. Can you imagine if we knew this? All the times that we talk about how unfair our world is and our lives are, we could have been creating abundance instead. Because when we see things as being unfair, guess what? We're not living from within out. We are not living from within out. We are living from a life of victimhood or powerlessness. Or powerlessness. And, it's not really our fault. We have been taught that success comes from the outside from the time we were little kids. From the time that teacher tells us our worth by that A or B that we receive in school, that sets us up for a lifetime of looking from the outside in for success. So we come to that point where we think, all right, I need to have a lot of money, a lot of material things. I need to get the accolades. I need to have the awards. I need to be respected by people and looked up to as defining success. But I'm here to remind you that that is not why you incarnated here. You are here to honor the truth of what you are by living from the inside out. Living from the inside out. All right, so we're going to take a look again at my Butterworth as he talks about this again. It calls for knowing. Really knowing that you are a spiritual being. Living in a limitless spiritual universe. Endowed with the whole potential energy, the flow of the universe. This is about living the truth of what we are. Divine, spiritual, eternal, and we are here in these bodies as vehicles because they work well on planet Earth. Now we know that there are other planets, there are other worlds in the universe. So I want you to go on an imaginary scenario with me. Let's say that you have decided to incarnate on planet Kepler 22b. It's an actual planet. And they say that it has a lot of similarities to Earth. It is 600 light years away from us, and it's in the constellation Cygnus. Did I say that right? Yes, I did. Cygnus. Now, you are still this spiritual being, but in order to live on this planet, you are embodied in a Keplean body. It happens to look like a Wookiee. You know the Wookiee from Star Wars? You're all kind of hairy, beautiful. Because it's a little chillier there, so you need the hair. For the Kepleans, their idea of success is knowledge. To be successful as a Keplean, you must be knowledgeable. So they spend a lot of their time reading, looking for and finding rare books, and then accumulating as many books as possible. And the pinnacle of success for the Keplean people, to have at least 3 libraries in your home. That's success. Now you're here, you're incarnated, you think, well, it's kind of a weird system, but I want to be seen as successful by my peers, by the other Kepleans. So what do? Same thing, yes. You start amassing books as well. And by the way, the e-books, they're really looked down on. They're old technology, counterfeit. Only those who don't have any money would be using those. So what's the focus? The focus of the Keplean people? You said it a little while ago. I'm just reiterating. Knowledge, yes. Knowledge and books. Now, how does that serve us as spiritual beings trying to evolve spiritually? How does that serve us? Not so much. Not so much, because as an eternal being, we know that we incarnate to raise our consciousness. We incarnate to raise our consciousness, to be able to overcome our egoic needs for truth. And when I'm doing this, it really came to me like, I can understand why Jesus is said to have said, greater works and things than these you will do. And it's quoted as saying in John chapter 14, verse 12. I used to think, wow, this guy's on some super drugs because, there's no way. But Jesus is our archetype who overcomes the limitations of the world that he lived in and his culture to do great things. And if we believe in the flow of the universe, then we too can do great things. Faith. Faith. Faith is saying yes to the kingdom within me is rich. Faith is saying yes to being in the flow of source. Faith is saying yes to an abundant life. Faith is saying yes to overcoming our own limitations and doing great things. Faith. I did meet him, by the way, so I can say that I can be a groupie, because I did meet Butterworth, but build on the awareness of ever-present substance and expand your faith in the stability of your own inner wholeness. The things will come to, and in abundance, but they will come out of the expanse of your wholeness, not at its expense. Wow. The light's too much. Really, we're talking about being your authentic self. not trying to be something that you are not, because you are beautifully made. You are beautifully made just the way that you are. And then he talks in there in that statement about building the awareness. So how do we do that? You know, it's always like nice when it's all fluffy and it sounds really cool. But then it's like the nitty-gritty. How do we do that? Gratitude. Gratitude is an act that we take to bring our awareness to our abundance life right now. Right now. And it sounds like a cliche. You know, we've all heard about people doing their gratitude lists and whatever. But I've got to tell you, it's a really powerful state of consciousness to be in. When I am in a state of gratitude, it's like there's a whirlwind around me energetically. I'm light. I'm all about possibilities and what ifs. And I have to tell you, in that zone, vortex, field, whatever you want to call it, good can't help but come to me. It's just an attraction. So I'll give you like a kind of an example. Graham and I bought a new car for me when we knew that I was going to be taking this position, because I still live in Kansas City. We still live in Kansas City, Missouri, and it's almost an hour commute. And we bought a brand new car, which is not what we normally do. We normally buy a used car that's been out for a while. But I've been living in Florida for a very long time, and so I'm not comfortable driving in snow anymore. So we really wanted to get a car that had the all-wheel drive on it, and so I'm going to be safe. And it's got this cool burnt orange color. Ooh, love it. So I really am feeling such sense of gratitude that we have the abundance to do this. And I know that this is a blessing to me. And because I'm in that kind of zone, everywhere I go, what do I see? Orange, burnt orange color of this kind of car. Everywhere I go. Right? Because I'm now in that state of gratitude and consciousness. I'm aware. And I use the word blessing. And when I use that word, it reminds me of a conversation that Jay and I had last Sunday. We were talking about the definition of the word to bless. And it's a really cool definition, which is to confer prosperity upon. And we were kind of going back and forth. Is this like Emily Cady, or maybe it's Charles Fillmore? Couldn't quite get where it came from. But you know, people, where did it come from? Butterworth! That's right! That's right! It came from Butterworth. And he says that when we are filled with gratitude in our mind and in our heart, there's an overflowing. And we can confer prosperity on others, on our friends, on our lives, on our neighbors, on the person driving next to us, on the folks in line. So the question is, well, why do I want to confer prosperity on people when I don't feel very prosperous? Right? What it is it's a shift in your awareness. It's a shift in your awareness that you really are. It may not look the way that you think it should look, but you really are. So we're moving from lack consciousness to abundance. Moving from lack consciousness to abundance. And I got to tell you, you know, if we look for the awful, what are we going to find? The awful. And if we look for the blessings, right. Now, our media has made a decision that horror and tragedy sells. And so they give us these stories that are the worst of humanity. And they tell us, this is the world that you live in. Now, I'm not saying that we don't see the world as it is. We do. But we don't judge it and label it. There's an allness to this world. It just is. That's right. Can I get an amen from her? That's right. I love it. So what I'm asking you to do is to walk around blessing, conferring prosperity on others. And it's not that southern. You know how that southern phrase goes? Oh, bless your heart. No, it's not from that. Because you know when somebody says, bless your heart, they're like, oh, that poor thing is so clueless. So no, it's not from that. When we bless someone, when we confer prosperity upon someone, we come from that energy, from the consciousness of abundance and our intentions, and we bless them. That's why Jay last week, he was talking about when the collection bag goes by, just hold it and bless it. Energy. Energy. So I'm going to ask you all to stand up. And I'm going to ask you to look at your nearest neighbor. And I want you to tell them, I bless you and I confer prosperity upon you. Together, I bless you and I confer prosperity upon you. Okay, look to your other neighbor. Look to your other neighbor if somebody was left out. Were you left out? All right, if you're done, you may be seated. We are here to bless each other. That's why we come together as a community. Excuse me. Sorry. To bless each other. Thank you. So this week, your assignment, should you choose to accept it, is to be aware of the things that you're grateful for this week and to confer prosperity upon everyone that you come in contact with this week. You don't have to say it out loud if you don't want to. You don't have to use the words that I've used if you don't want to. But it's about the intention. What I'm getting you to do is use the ever-present substance. Do you understand? You're using the ever-present substance to shift. That's what this assignment is about. So next week, hopefully my throat will all be well. Yes. And we will be talking about, are you the only begotten one? That's the third in our series of prosperity, and I look forward to seeing you then.